Welcome to Life Choices. Thank you for joining us today. I have an interesting guest. You're going to want to stay for this whole show. Her name is Barbra Batterman, and she is a makeup stylist. Now we're going to find out what that is. And she's been doing this in Las Vegas for the last 30 years. Welcome, Barbra.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So nice to have you here. So tell us, what is a makeup stylist as opposed to a makeup artist?
So I call myself a makeup stylist because I am licensed and I do hair, but I am really more about my makeup and about styling than I am so much about the hair. But it is a part of my job, so I do that.
And when you say styling, are you talking about someone's whole image? You help them fix that or improve it, or
I do.
Create a look? Or
Yeah, so what I've found working a lot of corporate the last maybe 5 or 10 years, that a lot of the women that I work with that are in a man's world and they're up on stage and they have a certain look about them, but they have an insecurity about really saying who they are. I think that they do what they think they're supposed to do, and I don't believe that that's always right. As a woman, why can't you be who you are? And I don't mean go out with the bustier,
No.
but I mean you can wear something that's flattering. It doesn't mean you always have to wear something huge so you can't see your figure or anything like that.
Right,
So I started that probably in October. I had a lot of my clients say to me, you know, I really like your style, and I believe it's because I'm older. So you can have your own image. So I do like to help with that and assist with that.
And I think it's such a good thing because so many people don't know exactly what looks great on them. And I mean, just going to shop, and I don't mean to be rude about where we live, but we have a limited supply of really fashionable clothing here in Las Vegas.
Yes.
I've always wondered why, because not only do we have fashionable women here, but we have women who come here from all over the world, and you'd think we'd have the best shops ever, and yet I find myself sometimes going to Los Angeles to find that special dress or that special thing. So I think what you do is amazing because you can really help those of us who are a little bit limited in our choices.
Well, yeah, I don't call myself like a wardrobe stylist, but I believe through the years that I have an eye for it. So I will hook you up with a stylist, but it's more about let yourself go, and it's okay to have an image, and whatever that may be. I mean, what your image is going to be different from my image, and the next one will be different from that. And you know, these women, and they want to keep it quiet that they would even hire somebody such as myself to assist them. But because it's a private kind of thing, that they don't think that anybody really needs to know that. But clothes that fit properly, and once you start to age, whether it's 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, your body changes, and there's things that you need to accentuate, and there's things you need to cover.
Yes.
And that's fine. And I do agree with you. Our stores have gotten better here, much better through the last 30 years.
Yes.
I mean, at least we have a variety, and we have some specialty shops. But it's really learning what's good for you. And even with the client of mine now, I went to her house, I went to her closet, I helped her there, and then I'm going to take her shopping because we never see what anybody else sees when we look in the mirror. So a lot of times taking a photo, if that's it, oh, that does make me look a little bit more slender or taller.
Yes. And the other thing I love about what you do is I see so many women that when there's a special event, they go and they get the evening gown and the shoes and the bag and everything, but they don't go and get their makeup done or their hair done. And the makeup and hair is what makes the whole look. I mean, you can wear just about any old rag if you've got your look together.
Exactly. I totally agree. Like when it comes to the makeup, maybe, I don't know if they have the thing, if they're going to spend money, they want to have something for it, where the makeup you have for the night or for the day, and that's it. But the makeup completes, and the hair completes your whole outfit. So I don't understand that for a lot of years. That I see these women that have these beautiful, whether they're designer or not, they're so put together, and then what happened to their face?
Yeah. I mean, it just makes me want to take them and shake them and say, why didn't you stop and get your makeup done before you came here? But I've been in the modeling industry all my life, so I'm really into makeup. The more makeup I can get on my face, the happier I am. And sometimes I get too much on because I just love it so much. But when did you decide you wanted to be a makeup artist, a makeup stylist? What made you make that decision?
Well, my mom was a makeup artist, so I grew up with it. So I always say I think that she was brainwashing me because I used to go on these demonstrations with her and I would hand her this product, hand her this product. So I never really studied it. It was just like a natural thing.
Right.
And then I decided when I was in my late teens that I really wanted to pursue that. So I thought, well, my mother doesn't know what she's talking about. I mean, she's my mother. So I would go to New York, I would go to all the hair shows, and I would go to whatever I could to learn about hair and makeup. And then my mother had a cosmetic boutique, so that's where I started. And I started working for my mother. And what's interesting is some people would prefer my mom because she was older and more experienced, and some would prefer me because I was young and trendy.
Yeah.
And as I've aged, I see that happening. I have an agency as well, so I even see it with my artists. I know some jobs call for a younger person, and some jobs call for me.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting, but that's how I got involved. And then I finally realized my mom really knew what she was talking about after I got over that whole thing and worked for her for years.
Yeah. And then what caused you to come to Las Vegas? What made you make that choice?
I had a cousin, may she rest in peace, and she said to me, "You're ready to make a change. Why don't you go check out Las Vegas? It's the fastest growing city right now." So, and I had never been. And I had applied for a job. I was going to take a year. I was going to sell my business back home, take a year off, and then come out west and stay out west. So I interviewed with Princess Cruise Lines, and I was going to do that first. They asked me how many boxes I could carry, and I was like, "Oh, this is not very glamorous." I came to Las Vegas. I checked it out, like my cousin said, check it out, and I did. And then I went home, sold my business, went to the beach for the summer, and right Friday after Labor Day, I was here.
Wow. And been here ever since.
30 years.
Right?
It's a
And
long
during
time.
that 30 years, I bet you've met some interesting people. Who do you think's the most interesting person you've ever done makeup on?
I don't know if it was interesting, but I still had a love for doing her makeup, which was Joan Rivers.
Really?
And because she's the kind of woman that I didn't know whether I was really going to love her or hate her, but I loved her as a comedian. And when I got to do her, she would walk in the dressing room and say, "Okay, you'll take the flowers, you'll do this, you'll do that," like totally taking over. She used to tip me, which was, people like that, they don't, and you don't expect a tip from them. She used to tip the bellman to go take your makeup for you so you didn't have to carry it. I mean, she was very classy, and it wasn't about the money as much as it was just who she was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really enjoyed her, and I didn't even make her up that much, but the time that I spent with her, she was very thoughtful. She would bring you something from her line of jewelry, and so she's a very extremely positive memory in my mind.
You know, it is a good experience. I had the opportunity to do makeup for a few years, and Phyllis Diller was my favorite person. And you know, she always made herself up to look worse than she did. And when I did her makeup for an interview she was doing on a TV show, I forget which one it was, but she wanted to look pretty, and you know, not like the Phyllis Diller we all know. And it was really a wonderful experience. What a delightful human being. You know, I think sometimes we see these big stars and we think, oh, you know, they're going to be so difficult, or they're going to want their makeup a certain way, or they're going to want, you know, and then when they're delightful, it's such a nice surprise, isn't it?
It is. And a lot of times I believe their people make such a big deal about everything that you really think you're going to walk into, oh, a disaster maybe. And most people are nice. I mean, most celebrities and most people are nice. And I have found through my years that the ones that weren't so nice are the ones that are a little bit insecure, or they're just not maybe sure of themselves, or they're questioning whatever. And then there's the celebrities that you feel like you've just made a new best friend.
Yes, yes.
I love that.
How important do you think it is to set goals? How important is it to, like you and your career, to set goals?
I think goals are extremely important, although I'm all about habits and about mindset. So it's very little baby steps for whatever it is, whether it's my makeup goals, and now being over 60 or 66, my goals are different than they were when I was 30. And that's okay that your goals change, but you set goals enough that you can achieve them and then move on from there. So I know through my career, I mean, there were plenty of times I pinched myself like, oh, how did I ever get here? Yeah, Barbra Jo Batterman, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. How did you ever do? You know, I mean, I've had those experiences, and it's like, wow, you hit a plateau and you hit a goal. But I think it is very important.
Yes.
You always have something to look forward to, and you always have something to work towards, which is important.
Yeah, I think so too. Wanted to ask you this question. Does dealing with people's surface imagery speak about what's going on inside of them?
Yes.
When you're dealing with them on the outside, do you discover interesting things on the inside?
I do, and I think that's something that I've learned through the years, that it's not only body language, but it's also maybe, I don't want to say reading people, but understanding. If there's somebody, then they're about to go out to a crowd of 4,000 people, they don't really want to talk about their dog or their cat or your pets. They don't really care.
No.
So you have to know when. So I can usually read that part of when it's time, quiet time, and when it's time to get into a conversation. Because some people, their nerves, they just want to chit chat. They don't really know what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
But I believe you do get to understand them and their whole image and about who they are. So I don't always get a list of who I have to make up before they sit in my chair.
Yeah.
So I try to Google real quick if I know, and if not, you just keep on the surface questions. It could be someone I'm supposed to know, and I don't. So you don't want to put your foot in your mouth.
No, no, you sure don't. Do you think having dealt with people like you have on a surface level, does it give you an insight into their inner self?
I believe that it does, because if you learn how to listen and not always have a conversation in your head as somebody else is speaking, by listening, I believe that that has helped me figure out, okay, I know who this person is, and you could usually tell by the way they dress, about their stance, about their body language, what they're afraid of or what makes them comfortable or uncomfortable. And people that have been on stage a long time, some of them are still very comfortable, and there's others that still get that fear factor, and they become very nervous, and they make movements, and their eyes are all over the place. Or to try to make somebody up when they're looking at their computer, when they're looking down the whole time,
Yeah.
it's like,
Could
your
you
head up a
please
little,
put
yeah,
your
right.
face up?
And you know from doing makeup that
Yeah.
you need them to look at you, but you just work around that. But you do kind of read into them.
I've worked with a lot of speakers. I've been a professional speaker for 50 years now. Can you believe that?
That long.
50, yeah. And so I do a lot of work with speakers. And what I noticed is that people have been showgirls, that they've been on stage as a showgirl, but they've never opened their mouth. You know, they've walked on stage, they've
Looked
been
beautiful.
half nude on
Right.
stage, they've worn their feathers, they've done things I would never, ever be able to do on stage. Now they're in a position to where they have to go and do a speech, and they'll call me and ask me to help them, and they're petrified. And I'm always surprised that after being on stage like they have been for so long,
Topless.
yeah, that they would be scared. Do you find that with some of them when you're working with them?
I do. Well, especially with the showgirls, because I find with showgirls that they're so used to having their makeup showgirl style, which is different from every day, that they are very, they're kind of over the top like that, but they're showgirls, so they look beautiful. But I did a job and it had to be for women over 50 or something, so there were a lot of showgirls that were there, and it was like a showgirl fest. Everybody knew everybody, and they were in their glory. And it's also interesting because a lot of them went into yoga and stuff like that. Have you found that?
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, once they have to speak, it's a different story. And you would think that they would be natural because they're used to posing and standing, but I know from my own thing, from being behind the camera, when you're up on a stage or you're in front of people, it's very different.
What's the most difficult decision you've ever had to make in your life? Or let's say difficult choice. There's probably a difference in the two.
Well, I went through a period. I started my agency for makeup artists and stylists, the Batterman Group. I started that about 12 years ago. And it was because I was getting a lot of work and I couldn't do it. And my friend said, well, why don't you just open an agency? And I'm like, no, I believe in the karma. Let me just give. But I was really getting busy. So I opened this agency. And about 2 years ago, I went through a stage where I really thought, I don't want to do this anymore. Not that I don't want to do makeup at the agency end of it. And it's not like it's constantly, it's not a 24/7 thing, but you know, when you have your own business, it is a 24/7 thing. I had to make a decision what I was going to do with the business. And I believe that was a hard decision for me to make, and I decided I would change the agency, and then I ended up taking it back as it was originally in the beginning, and I was like, no, you know what, you're really good at this and you do enjoy it. You were just going through a stage. So that was a big decision for me.
Now, what does the agency actually do? Do you book other makeup people?
I do, and myself if they want me. I mean, it all goes through my corporation. But I book makeup, I book hair, I book stylist, I used to book manicurist. You know, and I would have a lot of concierges call me saying, Barbara, we have a client that needs this, and who needs lashes put on, and are not getting until 11:30 tonight, and they only want mink lashes, and you know, there's specialty things that maybe the salon is closed, so they would call me for that.
Oh,
and yeah, that was kind of a challenge. I like that part of it.
That's amazing. I like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And you have these concierge people from the various hotels in Vegas that
would
call you?
Right, that know me for a lot of years and say, look, we need this. Or if, like someone would say, oh, call BJ. You know, she knows somebody. Or someone needs a doctor. Oh, she knows somebody. It was like I was the connection queen. I don't know. I don't know how that happened. Or I'm also in charge of like the Billboard Awards and Country Music Awards and iHearts and stuff like that. So when the people come in from California, who I've known for a long time, whether it's Dick Clark Productions or whomever, they'll say, oh, ask BJ. You know, this one needs a doctor, and this one has a pimple, and this one has this. I'm like, okay. You know, so it's like the challenge,
yeah,
you know, which I like that part of it.
So you're kind of the expert.
Well, just from, as you know, from being in town.
In everything, yeah.
You just kind of know who you call for what, and you make your connections, and you find out who's the best at whatever, or you have a bad experience and know who you're never calling again, whatever that may be.
When a woman decides that she wants to change her look, she wants to upgrade her look, she wants to look different, what are the things she should consider?
I have a lot of women that if I'm giving a makeup lesson to them, and I just gave one to a friend of mine last week, and she came in and she's letting her hair go gray, and she's gained some weight with the pandemic and that kind of thing, and she just needed an updated look. So I consider what she does, who she is, and a lot of times you don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
But it's more about what your lifestyle is. How much time do you give yourself in the morning to do your makeup? If you're not working, do you put makeup on? Do you put lipstick on to go food shopping? Once you find that kind of thing out, it's like, are you going to do a 5-minute makeup, or are you willing to give it 15 minutes, or are you the type that will spend an hour? So I try to figure that out first, and usually I go through what they've been doing. I always say, show me a picture of yourself that you like the way you look. A lot of times they'll bring up, well, yeah, this is from 20 years ago. I'm like, well,
That's
okay.
the last time they like the way they look.
And I'm like, okay, well, you're 20 years older, and you could still be trendy, and you could still have that hip style to you, but there's things that used to work that don't work, because as we age and things start to drop and the lid gets heavy and you know, that type of thing, and then there's the certain things that are always important, like your eyebrows, and you know, once that starts to droop a little bit, it doesn't mean it's always about injections. Not that I'm not a believer, but there's also a lot of women that don't want to do that, and I totally understand that. But there's ways to draw your eyebrows on that are a little bit more lifting than what you go into autopilot and you do every day.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to learn. And even this friend of mine that was just over, I looked at my phone, and the last time I gave her a lesson was 7 years ago. So she was due. You know, and I like the fact that, and you have to do that, and I go through your makeup, say, okay, this is good, this is not good, you can't wear this anymore, this is too frosted, you know, this is expired, this is, so.
I heard somewhere that women wear makeup for the rest of their life like they wore it at the most attractive time in their life. Is that true?
That is true with a lot of women, that they can't tend to move off of that, because it's their comfort level. But what they don't realize is when we look in the mirror, we don't see what everybody else sees. So the fact that you were wearing cat eyes is fine, but now that this is drooping, you know, cat eyes in the same position is not going to look cat eyes anymore. You're going to look sad. So it's also a matter of being able to go in with an open mind and not be so stuck in your mindset, oh no, well, this is what I have to do. Or wear it. I mean, it's not permanent. So you could try it, and if you don't like it, then take it off, or put that on and take a picture and look at it from a distance.
We're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back. The Life Choices books are a series in which real people share their stories of overcoming obstacles, putting lives back together, and following their passions to create successful, significant lives. While the stories shared differ in context, they share a common thread of courage, hope, and fulfillment. No matter what obstacles you encounter or how many pieces your life is in, there is a way to find a new path, make a new choice, and create a better life. It is through life's challenges that we find our strength. It is the choices we make along the way that determine whether we remain victims of our circumstance or become victors. There is no such thing as life without struggle. No one comes out of the struggle the same as he or she was when it began. Everyone has to make choices between giving up or growing stronger. In the Life Choices books, you will discover how the authors have taken a variety of paths to find their own way back to wholeness and success. May they be the inspiration for you to continue your journey, make new choices, and create a new life. Get your copies at www.judymorio.com. Well, we're back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Barbara, nice to have you here. Let's talk a little bit about this charity that you're involved with.
The charity that I'm involved with, I love it. It's called Unshakable, and I've been friends with the president when she first started it. And now with the pandemic, there's been so much more time to be able to give back. And what Unshakable does is really helps women that have been, whether it's been abused or trafficked or just took the wrong turn in life and just trying to get back on track. So we do these programs that helps them. So my part of it is basically about loving yourself and your style and your hair and your makeup, how to do that for a job interview. But it always tends to be a little bit different depending on who the class is for. But I just never realized that, not that I've never given before, but the fact that I've had more time. So we just did a Zoom class last week, and of course I'm beating myself up afterwards. Oh, I should have done this, and I should have said that, and the things that we do to ourselves. And yeah, everybody said, Barbara, no, it was great. Like, these women actually do get something from it, and you can only hope. But I feel guilty. I feel like I get more out of it giving to them than they could ever get from listening to me. So it's really given me a whole new outlook, and the fact that I've had more time to do that is just very rewarding. So Unshakable, it's been a great organization.
Now, how did you get involved with them?
So Debbie, who is the president, I worked with her on different shoots she's also producing and different commercials and things like that. So we met and we instantly became friends. And just through the years, and then she had this dream about starting this. It was really going to start out to be a reality show, and then she went to the court system, and it ended up that she did this whole thing with them, and she realized exactly where she was supposed to be. And they just got the Google grant last year, which was a lot of money to help them. But they help all kinds of organizations, and you never know who you're going to be talking to, and you could be the one that makes that difference.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, yeah, and it's interesting because my background, I was a little shaky in my 20s and took that left turn instead of stayed on the main street, and they look at me and think, oh, well, what would you know from our life? And I'm like, no, I do know from your life. I mean, not that I was trafficked or not anything like that, but I do understand about taking that wrong turn. And if I got on track, you can get on track too.
Now, is it all women? Are there
It is
men?
all women,
It's
yes.
just women.
It is just women.
Yeah. And they come, you say they come from all different
From all different
avenues?
walks, whether, some of them are homeless. The group we just did, their moms that were homeless, and now they have them in a home with their children. But they're trying to get a job and trying to, it was like, well, how many of you have kids? And everybody raises their hand. It's like, okay, so you don't have 15 minutes for yourself in the morning, but maybe you have 10. Maybe you need a 5-minute meditation for yourself, and 5-minute, if lips make you feel better about yourself, then that's what you do.
Yes.
Or your eyebrows, or you love your eyes, and we always go through the class, what is it that you look in the mirror and love about yourself? And I
like
think it's
that.
very important.
I think that's very important.
For any age,
Yes.
but especially for these women. I mean, I believe we all probably come from a little dysfunction, but nothing like, I don't know from anything like that.
Right.
So it's a wonderful charity.
I think it's wonderful that you're doing this because so many times people just feel like they have no hope. And I've worked in some of the prison systems, and I've worked with women that have had really bad beatings and abuse in their lives, and they just don't seem to have any hope. And I think that's what you're giving them. You're giving them hope that things will be
worth.
better.
They don't
yes.
think that they're worth anything.
Right.
And what a shame to feel like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's not pretty.
No, it's not pretty. But I really admire you that you're doing that because it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. And I think just a little lipstick sort of helps anybody feel a little bit better.
It's so interesting after you make somebody up or you fix them up, just a little touch up, and they look in the mirror and they start like this with their hair, and they feel good about themselves.
Right.
And even, I've made up one girl when we weren't doing Zoom classes, and she didn't like what I did, of course, but that's okay. We're creatures of habit, and you get used to seeing yourself the one way, and that's your comfort level.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's okay, it comes off. I mean, it's makeup.
Exactly, yeah. And some people don't like to see themselves differently. They see themselves a certain way.
They're very comfortable.
But they need to at least have skin care. Any woman, if she's not going to wear makeup, she does need to take care of her skin.
Skincare is the base of everything anyway. So your makeup is only going to look that much nicer if your skin looks good.
Exactly.
And it's interesting through this whole pandemic how people have been so tuned into their skin, even more so than their makeup. And of course, nobody's wearing lipstick because you're wearing masks. So
yeah.
It's interesting the result of it.
Yes.
That, it's like, oh, I like that, and I found this, and I do a newsletter, and you get people that send back. It's like, oh, I found this product that I like. I love that, because there's so much out there.
Yes, there is, and it's hard to know which to choose. How do they know which to choose, which products to go for?
Right, and also, well, a lot of it is, this is what I have to spend, so that will also limit you or let you know exactly which direction you can go. But not everything has to cost hundreds of dollars.
No, it doesn't.
So even when I'm talking to these women, it's like, Elf makes a great line. You could get it at Target, and there's things that you can get at the dollar store that are fine, that you don't have to, doesn't always have to cost a lot of money.
Exactly.
But your skincare is very important to exfoliate and take off the dead skin so your moisturizer gets in. So and also change is good with that. I work with clients, I've been using this line for 15 years. I'm like, maybe it's time for a change.
Yes, sometimes we do need to do that, don't we? What happens when we change?
Well, even you change shampoos and it's, my hair feels different now. I believe that your hair, your skin gets so used to using these products that it's just repetitious, and you just, by changing it, all of a sudden you'll see your hair will be a little bit more shiny, or it won't be as dry, or it's just not used to that habit.
I love your hair.
Thank you.
It's interesting because you have kind of like a little lavender tint to your hair. And I've seen a lot of people who have lavender on their hair, but it's not gorgeous like yours. Yours is really well done.
Thank you. And what's interesting is during the pandemic, I was cleaning my cabinets and drawers like everybody else, and I found these purple drops that that a client of mine had sent to me, or she'd given to me because her hair was gray. And anyway, so I found them, and I sent her a text. I'm like, what do I do with these drops? She said, put it in your conditioner and leave it on. But, with me, it's like, oh, well, more is better, and the more time. I mean, that must mean I look like a troll. It was so bright purple, and I was like, oh, well, it's good I don't have a job right now. But it's funny, I never thought I would be one of those women as I age that I would have, like, lavender hair. I'm not about, the turquoise, the green, the pink. For me, and I love the lavender.
Well,
so thank you. I appreciate that.
It's your look. It's very unique, and you look very, very good.
Thank you.
What is the most impactful choice you've ever made?
The first thing that comes to my mind is to get married.
Mm.
I didn't get married for the first time till I was 59.
Wow.
And married a man that had never been married. So, but I knew at that point, I always said through the years, I want to meet somebody, I want to get married, and that never happened. I mean, I had opportunities and I was engaged, but when I finally met this man, I said to him within 40 hours, I said, look, I'm looking to get married within 2 years. If it's to you or somebody else, I had finally made up my mind, maybe a bit of a late bloomer. And I think, I don't know if it was just that I was ready for it, or, but that was a big change for me.
Oh, yes, I would think so.
From being a single woman, doing everything on my own, and I still do things on my own, and he still does his thing. Both of us very independent. But when that came out of my mouth, to the man that I ended up marrying was a bit of a surprise to myself. So I think that was the biggest decision, and one of the better ones probably that I've made.
That brings me to a question I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you if you think men and women make choices differently. However, let's go back. You said the husband had not been married before either. So you were both single for a very long time. So what made him change his mind and make a choice to get married?
He wasn't looking to get married. But what he did was, when I told him that week he sent me a list of 11 things on commitment. And I was like, oh, well, that's a little scary. And then I had to investigate it because I'm like, how come I don't know anybody that he knows? I mean, what's the deal? Anyway, and my friends used to say, oh, well, he's never been married. Like, what's wrong with him? I'm like, well, what's wrong with me? I was never married. So I really couldn't, I couldn't understand it. But he married me because I wanted to get married. And obviously he didn't do it because he didn't love me. But the love has even gotten stronger through the years. So it's been great. It's about to be 7 years. Since like 70, we always kid around. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah.
But I think that was the decision for me that really changed. The makeup and the agency and everything was such a big part of my life for 45 years that he was the biggest change, I believe.
Wow. So what do you consider a difficult choice?
Difficult choice. When I look ahead in my career, and I have artists that are so want to be the best, and they just want to go for the juggler, and they have tests, and they have ideas, and they want to try this and want to, I have to say I don't have all that anymore. So it's like, well, what am I going to do later in my life? I mean, what would I be doing if I wasn't doing what I love, which is makeup? But if I weren't doing that, what would be the next chapter for me? And I believe that is probably another choice that I'm in the process of making, and I'm feeling really great about it and comfortable about it. So, we'll see.
Yeah, and I think you're working with this charity is a good choice, and one that you're probably going to continue with for a while.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
It's called Unshakable.
It's called Unshakable.
And so, if someone were on the street, or they wanted to be part of this, they wanted to have you teach them how to do something, how would they get involved?
Okay, well, Unshakable reaches out to places like Shade Tree, and they have, their people and that are connected with them work with all different kinds of charities.
I see.
So I would assume that somebody that wanted that would be able to ask the person that wanted from one of these groups.
Yes,
and said, well, I would like to do this, or I really need to go look for a job, and how would I go about that? And these groups are connected with Unshakable. Not that they have everybody, but they really keep connecting with a lot more of these, family groups and things like that. That besides places like Shade Tree, which was always my charity of choice as well.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just interesting that I didn't realize that there were so many people that are homeless, and so many women that have kids that can't get the job, can't get a job. And I wake up every day grateful that I'm not that mom with 4 kids and 2 jobs and no insurance. And I'm grateful daily for that. And when I finally get to meet these women, I'm like, wow, they're really living that. Yeah.
Some of them have had really rough roads, and I just so admire them for hanging in there and sticking through some of the really tough times that they do. Having children and being on the street is not. It's not a good experience. I can't even imagine. No.
Even to care for yourself after you've been beat down, to feeling like nothing and feeling like you're not worth anything.
Yeah.
And then having kids to try to keep them positive on top of it. I can't imagine.
Exactly.
It's a tough one.
Barbara, it's been absolutely wonderful having you as a guest today. Would you tell my audience how they can get in touch with you if they would like to have their makeup done or hire a makeup artist? And so just, if you would.
My website is bjbatterman.com, BJ for Barbara Joe, Batterman like Batman, but Batterman. My email is bj at the Batterman Group, GROUP, which is my agency. And I'm also on Facebook, BJ Batterman. I'm also on Instagram. I believe that one is BJ Batterman, and also at the Batterman Group. I'm easy to find. I'm around. It seems like I've been around for such a long time. It's wonderful. People leave here, and I'm like, you know what? I love it here.
Yes, so do I.
And
This
I hear
is
somebody
home.
complain. I'm like, well, if you can't find anything to do here, you probably need to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I would love to do your makeup, so
Great.
call me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being my
Thank you.
guest. It's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure.
And thank you for joining us today, and I hope you'll watch our future shows. We have some really good ones coming up. Thank you, and make good choices. Choices. We have choices. They are the source of the success in our lives. When things happen to us, we can choose to believe they happened for a reason. We can discover opportunities in the most difficult experiences if we are willing to look for them. It is what we choose to think about each experience that determines how we respond to it. How we respond determines whether or not we find richer, more purposeful, more joyful lives. We are the only ones who can choose our attitudes and the principles that we live by. Choose well, my friends. Choose well.